Hello, and welcome to another game development broadcast for Project CSK. As usual, of course, I'm the creator of the project, and the online name that I go by is Des. Going to continue working on the development of the project, and if you missed the last broadcast, it was pretty good. I liked it. It was different than the usual, but it was also a special event. It was the 12th anniversary of the server going online and people being able to join and play on the live server. So that was something that was really interesting. So for that, I decided it would be just better or just something a little different to play online with the community members. So if you missed that, it is archived on YouTube and you can still play it. It's pretty good, or sorry, watch it. I explained a little bit about the game and just jumped into the game, the Flash client, of course, not the new Unity client, which is not yet ready for play. But basically, I was just playing and having fun with the community. The game rooms were very competitive. I got absolutely annihilated. I think I won maybe a single round inside of the game rooms, and then we went and played in the world for a little bit. Just made a team and went and defeated one of the bosses, which was also really fun. I like the variety. I like the difference in between being able to play in game rooms, which is really fast paced, real time, and it gets pretty crazy in the game rooms. And then switching over to something that's very casual, relaxed, and just being able to play with your team. And defeat some bosses or monsters and get some items and whatever it is that you particularly enjoy doing. Either way, it was just a really fun experience. I enjoyed it. I believe the community members enjoyed it as well. So for those of you that were there for that, thank you for coming to hang out. And that was the 12th anniversary. Before I move on, I just want to point this out. So one of the community members made this awesome drawing. I just want to show it off because it looks really good. I really like this drawing. So I'm just going to take that into here. Okay. And here's one of the community members and the artwork that they did. This is one of the characters of the game, or one of the costumes that you can have for, or pretty close to it. I would say it's very well done, and the attention to detail looks great. And then you can see the pets in the background, all the different types that were made. I just thought it was really good. I like seeing this stuff. I think the attention to detail, the choice of colors, the overall aesthetic style and presence and atmosphere that it creates, I just think it was really well done. So for the person who did that, I'm not going to call you out, but you know who you are. And thank you for that. I enjoyed this, and I think it looks great. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention was that, so between the last broadcast and this one, I had an opportunity to work on the project and figure out a couple of things. One of them was the controls on the touch screen. I finally got that working. There was this bug, and it was brutal because of how difficult it was to pinpoint. It just was not behaving, but nothing was crashing, kind of thing, right? So it was obviously my mistake. But after spending, I don't even know how many hours, after spending, I don't even know how much time, I tracked it down. The reason why the touchscreen wasn't working was because when I was getting the initial position of the touch on the screen, what I was doing is then I was converting it from screen position through the camera to world position, right? And then using that as a raycast. The mistake that I was doing is when I was initially getting that screen position, I was getting it as vector 2, even though screen position is vector 2. It is. It's because it's on the X and Y on the screen from the bottom left to the top right. But I was not converting it to vector 3, so the Z position would have been 0 anyway. And then I was passing it in to the camera to convert it from screen position to world position, and it was giving me a different result. So all it came down to was just one single character of a mistake, and I had vector 2 instead of vector 3. I cannot mention, because I don't know how much time I spent on that, because I tried everything that I could possibly think of. And then eventually, by the end of the night, I was so tired, I was so exhausted. I'm like, oh yeah, this looks like, it looks like it should be maybe a vector 3. I'll try it, right? Because I was doing the exact same logic for mouse pointer, and there's no difference between mouse pointer and screen position when you get the position from the event system. So there's no difference between the two. So it made sense that it should be working, right? The only difference was vector 2 to vector 3. So when I switched it over to vector 3, it just started working. So that kind of sucked, but at the same time, I'm glad I figured it out because it was so minor, and it's something that's so obvious that it's really easy to overlook those kinds of details. Happens to all of us, right? So yeah, that was one of the things. And then during that, I realized that I don't know when, at some point, Unity patched the Unity client in one of the newer versions so that Unity Remote, which has been broken for like 2 years, using the new event system or the new input system, which uses the new event system, was unresponsive to screen touch, but now it's working. It works, but it disconnects almost immediately. So once you run it and it's working, you have about 10 to 20 seconds until it breaks and it stops working. But still, that's better than not having it. So I don't know when they fixed it or when they started pushing that out, should I say. But it is kind of working. So that's great. And that's what I've been using. And that's what allowed me to get the testing working. So now the touchscreen is working. There's still some stuff, of course, that needs to be figured out, but I haven't had a chance to test it since I figured that out. And immediately after figuring that out, it was like end of day. I was so tired. I just wanted to go to sleep, right? So I'm just going to connect my tablet. And of course, we lose camera. Just bear with me for a sec. Yeah, anytime I connect or unconnect or do stuff, the camera just keeps getting disconnected because it also is an Android device that's connected. So ADB kind of resets the connection and the camera doesn't auto reconnect. So I have to keep manually resetting the connection. So if you see the camera go dead and I don't notice it, just let me know and I will get it up and running. Okay. So what I want is Unity Remote. There we go. I'll move that over here so it's in front of me. Okay, so let's test it and just see it working. So when we run it, of course, you won't see the screen of the device, but just know that it is not working. Okay. So we'll go into editor, project settings, any Android device, so that's correct. And then we'll go into file, build settings. Okay. And then camera dies again. Okay. Let's see, does this work? Nope, it does not want to work. That's interesting. So it was working, and then all of a sudden it just stopped working. It will not output to my device. I think it could be because I have so many things connected that are Android devices, or should I say instances of Unity, ADB kind of related devices, but touchscreen is working. So right now you can, this is of course a test environment. You can see that it is, I'm using the keyboard right now, but touchscreen would work kind of the same. I don't know why this isn't coming up. This should have, let me have a look at that. So this on auto hide, activate on mouse. Okay, no, that's correct. That is correct. So these ones should also be on disabled on activate on the mouse. So they should not activate on mouse. That's just for testing. The main thing is activate on touch. That's the main thing, is when you touch the screen, it activates. And that's the intended design. So let's go ahead and run it again and see, just in case. Nope, doesn't want to work. Oh, Unity requires check failed. What does that mean? I have no idea what that means. Okay. Unity remote check failed. More than one device emulator. Oh, okay. So that's pretty much it. It can't differentiate the connection, because I do have both the camera that you see me through and my tablet, and it looks like it can't differentiate. And when I was testing it the other day, it was purely just the tablet, because I have no need for the camera to be connected. Okay, so that means then I cannot use Unity remote during live broadcast. That's a bit unfortunate. I kind of like the idea of being able to show you guys what it looks like, but that's okay. There's another way of doing it. I won't worry about that then. So as long as it works, that's fine. So this is kind of where I'm at right now, in that I don't want that error. So let's just go here and go to project settings, and we'll go to none. That way it won't try to connect anymore. Okay. So yeah, this is where I'm at right now. We can use escape to bring up this menu. Of course, my character is still moving when this menu is active, and if I go off this, I'm going to fall, which we don't want, but for right now, that's okay for a test level. What we also are able to do is, in a little while earlier, a week ago maybe, I got it to the point where we can log in and join a game room. Yeah. So that game room that you see right now is this one from the other client. And you'll see it rebuild in just a sec. At least I think it should rebuild. I think it's because I haven't synchronized properly. So it needs another client. Okay, I'll toss in another client. It's because the new Unity client, it doesn't handle all the packets properly. So there's still some conditions that prevent it from syncing correctly with the server. So if the server doesn't detect a proper sync, then what happens is that it just puts that player into standby mode, basically, and the player is a spectator. And when the player is a spectator, of course, the game room will not start because it needs at least 2 properly synced players. Okay, and I'll put this other client in there. Okay, so that should get the game room going. So it should rebuild. Oh, okay. Well, one of them will need to be KO'd. So we'll KO this member. Oh, hello, Swallow 38. How are you doing today? Thanks for coming by. Hope you're doing okay. Okay, so with that player KO'd, we should get a new level. Okay, there we go. So that's our new round. I know it doesn't look the same. These are all temporary artwork in the new Unity client, but it's still good enough to kind of get the idea of cross, like everything is where it should be. So the characters would be in this position, and this position, right? So it is okay. These trees are a bit too big, of course. They're the environment objects, and that character is my is the test character, which can't move because it's stuck inside of the collider. So it's doing this weird jumping thing. That looks funny. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at right now. And the idea is to keep building out the functionality, and we'll get to the point where the game room will be playable. So that's going to be pretty cool. But before we do that, what I want to do is there's this other thing that's kind of been sitting around for a while. So this, you can see here, the reason why it doesn't look right is because they're not facing the camera. That's all I really need to fix, is to get this to face the camera, because you can see this is vertically standing, but the camera, so if we go to the camera over here, the camera is like that, right? So that's why you get this really strange looking squished look, right? So it's just a matter of resetting the rotation after instantiating the object, and that should solve it, I think. Anyway, so yeah, there's a few of those things that I want to solve. So let's jump into it and solve some of that stuff, and we'll just keep going through it. And I want to get the UI stuff working well, because right now we have mouse and keyboard, we have touch screen, and we have gamepad. All 3 of them are working, and you can alternate between them at any time, which is pretty cool. So that means it in theory works on almost any device that Unity can export to. You would get controls working. So like, for example, I usually test on my Xbox controller on my tablet. I connect it over Bluetooth, and then there's of course desktop, so Windows, Mac OS X, iOS, and eventually I have a new server I'm setting up locally for myself for testing, which a friend of mine, very nice of him to give me something that he's not really using. So I took one of those Think Centers, one of I think it's a Lenovo Think Center. Yeah, it's something like, I think it's something like this. Not a very good picture. I think this one's probably a better picture. Yeah, so it's one of these things. They're very small, like it's really small. And that's all it is. It's just a tiny little computer. So what I did is I took it and I wiped the hard drive and I put Manjaro on it. And then that's going to be my test server that I'm going to be testing on. So I got Manjaro on there. I got MySQL on there, and I'm going to be putting in some other stuff as well. And that's going to be my new test platform, which is going to be awesome when it's up and running. Are you remaking a Flash game? In a matter of speaking, yes. Well, initially it started out as I was recreating the client for this. So that's why I'm salvaging as much of the logic and communication stuff from this. So from this was the Flash client. And then I want it to be cross-platform. So it's being built in Unity, so it'll run on pretty much anything. And then I want it to have various input devices, so mouse, keyboard, gamepad, and touchscreen support. And then because it'll be stepping away from Flash, it's going to be a lot better performant, because it's going to be able to use the GPU of the device instead of being reliant entirely on the CPU, which was one of Flash's greatest downfalls. So in that sense, yes, it's a recreation, but actually it is the successor. So I see the Flash client now as something that I'm going to preserve for historical purposes, and because it's basically a classic at this time, and it's going to be playable indefinitely. Initially, I thought it would shut down at a certain point because we wouldn't be able to play Flash games anymore, but Adobe had provided us the Flash Player Projector, which is a standalone application. You don't need to install it. You just need to download it. It's like a couple of megabytes, so it's tiny. And it's just the Flash Player standalone, right? And then you can just open that, and then just like a video player or whatever, you just point it to a file, or you set it to default open the Flash Swift files, and they play in that locally. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. So this is the Flash Player Projector. And that way it'll just work indefinitely, and I'm not even going to fix it or do any more updates to the Flash client. But I salvaged as much as the code and the logic and stuff that I could, and then I'm slowly bringing it into this Unity client. And when we're at that point, and the goal is to get it to be a alpha prototype, which is what I'm working on right now, and then we'll be able to, because it connects to the same server, right? Like this here, when you see me connect, I'm connecting to a local server, but this can just as easily connect to the live server, because it can communicate the language of the packets of communications that go back and forth between the client server to synchronize. So yeah, in that sense, it's a remake, but it's not. It's the successor. I don't have a name for the project yet, but I'll probably call it just the second version, or some other different name. But it is we're capturing the essence, the very essence and core of this, and then bringing that into a whole new level. And if you're interested, I would highly recommend watching the 10th anniversary video I put on YouTube. It was a broadcast that I did a couple of years ago. So in that, I explained the history behind it and the roadmap of where we're going to be going with the project. I made a few minor mistakes on that, but I think it's pretty good in terms of getting the point across, and just kind of give you a general idea of the direction of where the project is going. It's, of course, a really large project for an individual like myself to do. So it's going to take a long time for me to get like real, like milestone kind of results, but I don't care, right? Because I do it as a hobby, I do it for educational purposes, and I do it on my spare time. So I don't really care how long it takes. And the community on Discord have been very supportive, and they're looking forward to it just as much, if not more, than I am. And I don't know if you saw this one, but here's from the 12th anniversary. This is what one of the community members drew for the project, and I think it looks awesome. It looks so good. So we got one of our characters in here, right? Got the hairstyle and everything, and then the pets that you can collect from within the world. So I think that looks pretty good. I like seeing that kind of stuff. Anyway, so that's kind of the idea. So for those of you that are here, hello and welcome. Feel free to hit that follow button. Feel free to watch. You can watch on YouTube or on Discord. sorry, not Discord, Twitch, of course, because some people have complications with watching on Twitch for whatever reason, and on YouTube, you can choose your video quality settings. I forget the name for it, but there's a specific word for it where Twitch doesn't give you that until you become, I think, a member or something, until you pass a certain threshold. But then YouTube gives that to everyone right off the bat. So you can basically go, instead of 1080p 30, which is what I'm broadcasting at, you can drop it down to like 720p or 480 or I think 320. I don't remember exactly what the different options are, but you can basically bring it down to something like, so it just takes up less of your bandwidth. So that's really nice, a thing with YouTube. I find it very helpful in that manner. That's cool. I might watch it soon on YouTube. Yeah, watch it at your discretion. Not a big deal. But if you're here for the, I don't know if you watched the last broadcast, which was the 12th anniversary one, that's also now on YouTube. We were playing in the game rooms, and that was really fun. I think I want to try and do more of that. It was actually just so, let's see if I can find it. I got just destroyed in that. It was great though. Oops, wrong video. What I want is this one. So I explained a little bit about the game, and then we just jumped right into it, into the game room. Okay, there we go. So that's us playing. This was from the 12th anniversary broadcast, and these games, wow, do they get competitive. Like, it was so fun and so challenging to play with people. We never fully maxed out the room, but I think at a point we had like 7 people. Yeah. So when you get to 7 people and you have that many people playing, it is not only really fun, but it is so challenging to play and to survive and make it to the end. So for those who were victorious in the end, congrats. You guys played really well. And yeah, it was just fun. It was fun. But yeah, so that was in the game rooms. And then at the end, we went and jumped into the world, and we fought one of the bosses. One of our team members, unfortunately, didn't make it in the end, and they got taken out. But still, it was fun. Regardless, we were able to defeat the boss with 3 of us, just because we had enough healing power and good teamwork. It worked out well. But yeah, so all of this functionality though that I'm showing, all of this will be in the new Unity cross-platform client, and it will it'll be way better than what you see here when we get to that point. Does the game need internet connection to play it, or can we choose to play locally offline? It does need internet connection, because the game itself isn't actually played on your client like this one that we were playing in the Flash player. It doesn't play on the Flash player. It's server authoritative, meaning the Flash player is just there to visually show you what's going on and get user feedback on what actions and decisions you want to make. But the game is actually played. The brain of the game is played on entirely on the server. It is not possible to play this standalone. It is completely a multiplayer game. So yeah, this was fun. I like the difference in that you can play very casually like this with your pets, and you can collect a whole bunch of pets, collect items, abilities, all that kind of stuff, do quests and everything. And then if you don't want to do that and you want to play something different, you jump into a game room, and you can play Bomberman Game Room, where it is very, very fast paced and so hectic. It's really fun though. For those people that like this type of gameplay, they you know what I mean, right? And then there's other people who don't like this so much and would prefer something that's more casual, that's perfectly fine too. That's exactly why there's two completely different types of gameplay within the game, right? And I just got destroyed. I won. So out of the whole time that I was playing, I won one single round. That's how good these players were. Of course, these players have been playing for a long time, and I know every single one of them, right? Online, of course. Yeah, it was really fun. It was great, actually. I liked it. Okay, so that brings us to kind of where we are now in terms of functionality. So what I want to do is I want to fix the angular rotation of those menus that come up. So let's have a look at it and see at what point is it kind of broken, and then see how we can fix that. So this right there, that's definitely not the correct angle of perspective. It looks like it's from the parent. Interesting. Okay, so what we'll do is we will go into GUI. Where's my circular menu? Okay, so this, at this point, if we were to rotate this to 55, okay, so not at that point. Container. Okay, so container at 55 would fix it. But the question is, why is it not working in the first place? Because I don't want to rotate it. I want it to inherit the angular rotation of the parent, right? So if nothing is rotated, then it should by default, rotation minus 55. Okay, so layer 0 has a rotation of minus 55. Why? That's why it's not working. Oh, I see. Okay, so I think the reason why that rotation is there no, it doesn't make sense. Okay, let's go into the prefab. So prefab container, okay, so it's not at this point. Let's see. Then let's change the scene, go to the main lobby. I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to go to the scene for main lobby. I went to the wrong location. Okay, so in here, let's have a look at that circular menu again. Yeah, it's competitive game, definitely fun to play with friends. Absolutely. That's exactly the idea of it. And that's why there's leaderboards and everything too, right? So like all of the game stats, because it's a multiplayer game, all of the game stats are here on the leaderboards. And you can look up the leaderboards, and you can even look up individual players. You can search for them, or you can just, let's say, click on one of them, and you can see the individual players' stats in terms of how many wins, ties, losses, the percentage, their current level, which is a pretty good indicator of how good someone is the higher people, higher their level is. It means they've defeated others of that are also skilled, of course. But when you defeat someone, you take their EXP. So you take some of their experience. So the ones that are the higher level means they have funneled the EXP upward, and that's why they are the higher level players. Costumes, so different costumes that you can collect. I don't care about gender. To me, it is irrelevant. It's a game. I think everybody should collect all the costumes personally, but that's just my opinion. Pets, same thing. Shows your pets and everything. So you can switch between your costumes. You can have only one pet active at a time, but you can have pretty much a very high number of pets. Right now, it was limited to 20, I think, or something like that. But moving forward, that limitation is going to be gone because there's going to be a lot more pets as well. You can't click on the pets to see their individual stats, but that's something for maybe later on down the road. And I just noticed I have not been updating this little news and updates section. Wow, I completely forgot about that on the website. Okay, well, that'll be on my to-do list. Okay, so at this point, when we're running in test mode and we go into friends, click here. Okay, so this works. Then why do I have that minus 55? I wonder. I wonder if I accidentally put that in or I intentionally put that in. I'm not really sure. But that minus 55 kind of goes the wrong direction, though, in terms of rotation. So it must have been accident. I don't know. Either way. Okay, so we'll go to circular menu, container. So it's not here. But when we run it, I thought this was the object. So rotation X. Okay, so it's not there. I thought it was at container. Oh, is that layer? Okay, so it was at layer 0. Oh, okay, so that means that, okay, layer 0 is dynamically added. That means, okay, I think I know where it is. So we'll jump into the code and we'll go into, where's layers. Where do we add a layer? So there's a point that we add layer right here. So add layer, where do we instantiate it though? Okay, let's follow this. So we follow this. Okay, so here it is. Local scale, local position, set parent. Oh, okay. Well, I don't see the, this is right where I should be, I think, adding the rotation. Let's try that. If we say game object, layer dot transform dot local rotation equals I'm drawing a blank. I think it was quaternion dot Euler. I think that it was no. I'm getting it kind of mixed up. I'll need to sample from somewhere else where I did the exact same thing. Where did I do a similar thing? Layer tile map, animation property curve, environment map, no. Whoops, wrong screen. Where did I do a similar thing? I think it was in the scroll view. Yeah, I think I did it in the scroll view here. So let's see. Quaternion? Nope. Where did we add an item? Create item. Create right here. Oh, okay, so it is quaternion and Euler. Okay, so I was on the right track. I just didn't remember because I don't use it very often. So you have to do this for it to get the proper value, because you can't just set XYZ rotation. You have to go through quaternion Euler because there's some other stuff that needs to be set But on reading it, of course, you get it as XYZ rotation as a vector 3. So it's interesting how that works. Okay, so what I want to do then is let's see if that fixes it. I have a feeling there's going to be more to it, because that just sets the parent, so it's the layer, but then the individual buttons that are dynamically set, I think still need to be set. So if we go to friends and go to here, okay, so yeah, that fixed the position. So now it's not vertically, they're farther apart, and we have a perfect circle in terms of their radius position. So now I need to do the same thing to the icons that are being set, and that should fix it. So let's go down to where is the other portion where we set the individual button. Okay, that's not it. I must have skimmed over it. Let's just look at set parent, I think. Nope. It would have to be inside of the layered menu group, maybe. Can we go to this? Okay, so inside of layered menu group, I think this is where we create the button. This circular navigation was quite challenging to make, and it was really fun. And it's got some weird oddities still, but wow, is it such a good navigation, and it's dynamic in terms of how many items you can add and the layering that it does. It looks so cool. Okay, where's my add? I want to see where the instantiate, okay, so instantiate, menu button create, instantiate, set parent. We do not, wait, we don't set position? Really? Okay, I'm gonna bookmark this. So Control KK, and then let's see if there's another. Where do we set position? Or don't we? Okay, so this is called from one location, and then from there, it creates it. Wait, where's it called from? I can't. Okay, so it's set from here, action menu, and then this goes and returns it. Okay. Oh, okay. So then this is where we right, of course, we don't need to set position because it gets calculated. So we normalize the index angle. We set the index positioning, meaning if it's 0, it would be to the right, I think is our rotation. Yeah. So 0 would be to the right, and then it will build out clockwise. So I think that was the right position. How do you write a complex script but still can understand how it worked? I really had a hard time when it's dealing with programming, and I'm new. I don't have any major programming skills, and that's okay. We all start there. So don't get yourself down or put yourself down by any means, okay? When you're first starting out, every single one of us had that same challenge, right? Because initially what you're doing is you're learning the basic concepts of programming. Until you learn the basic concepts, they don't become intuitive. But once they become intuitive, you have the core understanding of a programming language. And I'm not saying on an advanced level, I'm saying at entry level, right? Because everything that you learn, right, you build up on it. You build a foundation of knowledge, and then you continue to build up on that over time. Now, that's really important to keep in mind, because it is not possible to learn complex I guess, formulas or complex ways of structuring logic and things like that until you build that foundation. So your focus should be building up the foundation of that knowledge. And everyone has a different learning curve, right? What I mean by learning curve is I'll use myself as an example, and I've said this many times. I could be really, really good at learning something and really, really bad at learning something else. So obviously the thing that I'm good at is I'm going to learn that really more quickly and more easily. And the thing that doesn't really fit into my skill set or who I am, I'm going to learn that much slower. And that's just the way we all are, right? That's just the way it is. We're like that by nature. So with that in mind, what you do is you build it up in increments, right? You build up your knowledge in increments. You build up your code in increments, and it is 100 times easier to read your own code, right, than it is someone else's code. And the reason for that is because your code is actually a representation of who you are in terms of how your brain is structured. It is so strange though, and it is so awesome at the same time, because by looking at someone's code, no two people code exactly the same. They'll be similar, but no two people code exactly the same. No two people think exactly the same. No two people feel exactly the same, right? We're all unique and we're all different, right? So I will have certain oddities that I do in terms of programming that I do, just as someone else will, just as you will one day too, right? So you start off with the basics, right? Everybody started with Hello World. Everybody butchered Hello World. I know I did too, right? And then you go from there, you do something really simple, like just building UI buttons or making like a tic-tac-toe game, right? Where it's really simple logic, but it allows you to understand a bit more complex of details in terms of functionality, like mouse interaction on a object on the screen, right? Or being able to click something and change text somewhere, or be able to do multiplication, division, or do a formula that you can pass in, let's say 4 different parameters, right? And it can give you a different outcome, right? Or how to do a for loop or a for each loop, or to do a forward loop, or how to do a reverse loop, right? The differences between strings, integers, float values, all of that stuff, you learn them all over time, right? And what I would recommend personally is watching YouTube videos. There's a lot of great resources like Brackeys, Jason Wayman, and many others who have built up this huge archive of videos. But the thing you don't want to do, and I highly discourage this, is sit there and watch too many videos, but not actually code anything. Because the main part that you're going to learn from is the coding part that you do on your own. So what I would recommend you do is sit there, watch a video or watch a couple of videos, code something. Watch another video, code something, or do it while watching the video, code it so you're coding it at the same time, right? That encourages you to keep practicing, and it builds up your understanding, because even watching those videos, they require a prerequisite understanding of something, or an assumption of something, or that you're going to do something, or that you understand something, or you're going to interpret something in the way it's intended, right? You're going to come across with challenges even following someone else's video still. But when you do that though, you get into the habit of actually writing code. And once you start writing code, right, and this is the really important part, it starts to slowly, very slowly become natural. It's like speaking a language, right? You don't pick up a language immediately. You pick up certain words of a language. You learn how to put sentences together, right? And then eventually you start to get more natural and comfortable with it. And then at a certain point, it's just intuitive, right? And then you can go as far as you want in terms of the depth and complexity of that language. Programming, in a way, is called a programming language. By definition, it is a language. It is the human interpreted language of how we communicate with a computer hardware, but the code that we put goes through a compiler and it gets converted to assembly and it gets converted into binary. So that is the language of the computer. But we don't speak computer language. Computers don't speak human language. So we need multiple layers of translators in between. And you don't need to go in on the deep end. Stay on the easy stuff. Stay on something that's simple at the beginning. I can't stress the importance of that, because oftentimes what happens is you go and we all do this. I did it too myself, right? We all want to do something cool. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this 3D thing. I'm going to make a ball bounce off a wall, and then when it hits the ground, it's going to go splat, and it's going to make a splat kind of a colorful effect, right? Don't try to do that right off the beginning. Okay, just don't do it, all right? Physics and that kind of mathematical stuff requires a certain different type of understanding, which, to be honest, even I understand it to a very basic level. I entrust the game engine to do most of that thinking for me. So then when I go to do something, yeah, of course, there's a part of needing to figure it out, but then I'll figure it out and then I'll move on to something else and I'll forget how it worked to some degree until I come back to it at a later time and analyze the code and be like, oh, okay, so that's how something worked. Because you're never going to remember the intricate details of every single line of code. Now, if your project is, let's say, 20 lines long, yeah, you can remember a good portion of that. But when your project reaches, let's say, 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, 100,000 or 1,000,000 lines of code, you're not going to remember all of that. So instead, what your brain does subconsciously is it archives key points. And you'll remember something of systems and subsystems and hierarchy is roughly what you'll remember. So you'll know how to navigate to where you need to go, but then you'll need to look at what something is to remember, oh yeah, that's how I did that thing. This is how I'm going to modify it, right? That's why it's easier to read your own stuff than it is someone else's, because someone else would index that information differently and they would write it differently. I've watched tons of tutorials like Brackeys, a Blackthorn Prod, CodeMonkey, etc. But I always stick to the tutorial when a new problem appears, and I can't seem to find the solution myself. Yeah. And that's exactly kind of what I referred to earlier, is everything has kind of a prerequisite and an understanding, and you'll get it eventually. It's okay to not get it the first time, the second time, the third time, the 10th time, the 20th time, the 50th time. You see what I'm saying, right? Not everybody gets it right off the beginning. I know I didn't. When I first started programming, right, I'm self-taught. When I first started, I was like, what am I doing? Right? Of course, this was many years ago, right? Where information, YouTube didn't even exist. The internet was new. And I was just, barely just starting out and going, wow, this is the coolest thing ever, right? I can make Hello World appear by building an application. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, right? And then I couldn't grasp any other techniques or concepts beyond that at that time, just because I didn't know, right? I haven't learned that stuff yet at that time. It just takes time, really. I came across so many challenges where I was like, oh, I just can't solve this. I was stuck on it for like hours or days or something. I'm like, okay, this is too complex, right? But in actuality, what's a better solution is, if you get stuck on something, right? Document what you're stuck on right at the point where you're stuck on it. Put point form notes for yourself. Why something doesn't work. What have you tried? What could you try in the future, right? Move on to something else. move on to a different area of the code and do something that's simpler, do something else, and then come back to that other one sometime later with a fresh state of mind, maybe not the next day or maybe not even a week later, maybe more than that. You come back to it and you'll be in a different state of mind. You'll look at what you've done, you look at the notes that you left for yourself, and you'll have a different point of view of how to approach the solution, right? Even if that means going on to the search engine and searching for the solution, you'll still approach it with a fresh mind, and you will always find an answer as long as you're persistent. The only time you don't find an answer to something is if you give up on it. That's the only time you will not find an answer. But if you're persistent, and I don't mean sit there like every single day, 10 hours a day to try to solve one single challenge. That's not what I mean, right? But if you're persistent and you keep coming back to the same thing and trying different solutions, you will eventually get it. It is inevitable, because the path to success is led through countless failures. What that count is, I don't know, but that is success. So to succeed at something, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to try. And don't give up. That's really it. Just don't give up and keep at it, and you'll get it. That's exactly how I got to this point. That is exactly my path, and it's the same path that countless others have done, who are programmers, who work in the industry, or who do it as a hobby for fun, like for me. Everybody. We're all the same, because there's still, like, you'll never learn everything, right? That's impossible. I don't know everything. I know a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction in one specific genre. That's how much I know. And it's actually probably smaller than that, right? But that little tiny bit allows me to make cool stuff, and it gives me the confidence that I know I can figure stuff out. And that's important. That's really important. Excellent. Okay, so there's our navigation. So the cool thing about this navigation too is that it's layered, and it has these nice little transitional effects. So like you can indefinitely layer it, right? So this is going to work really good, and it works with touchscreen, gamepad, right, and keyboard and mouse, and it works really well. And you can change the radius, you can change the number per each layer, and it does this really cool like effect. Even though it's not 3D, it is 2D. It is totally, where are we? Oh, whoops. It is totally 2D, right? But it gives the illusion of 3D, but it's actually 2D, right? So you can see it's 2D, but it kind of makes you think that it's 3D because of the depth, kind of transparency and scale. That's all 2D, right? Of course, there's some math in here, and there's a little bit of trickery going on, but you can make something that gives the illusion of 3D but look 2D. So it's one of those things I like kind of messing around with, because perception, interpretation, and stuff, you can do some really interesting trickery, and that's exactly what other people do too. And by doing that, you can make some really cool stuff, like some really cool stuff. The limit is really your imagination, if you even want to consider that a limit. That's really great advice. Thanks. You're welcome. I'm glad it's useful for you. It's something that I'm just telling you honestly. That's all I'm doing, is I'm just telling you the facts. Some people say on their YouTube comments, just enjoy the journey, not the goal. And I think that's worked for me to survive in the hard times burnout. Yeah, absolutely. And burnout is a real thing too. I experience it too. So don't push yourself that hard, right? You don't have to push yourself that hard. It's good to have a balance of fun in there too, right? Like for me, fun is sometimes just experimenting and making these kind of like cool little navigational things, right? Like other people's definition of fun is going to be very different than what's my definition of fun, right? Just like mechanics, right? Mechanics of a game is relative to the definition of fun. What I enjoy, someone else may not enjoy. Someone else may enjoy, let's say, a card game or a board game, which has nothing to do with playing on a computer and have that human interaction, right? But when I want to have fun, what my preference would be is something different. And that's because my definition of who I am also plays a factor in that. But my definition of fun is different. So whatever your definition of fun is to you, there's no wrong answer. It's something that is entirely up to you to figure that out for yourself, right? Like how many times have you had your parents back in the day be like, oh yeah, let's go hang out with the relatives, or let's go do this, or let's go do that. And you're like, I don't want to do that. That's boring, right? Your parents' definition of fun was very different than your definition of fun. You are your own character, right? And you are unique. So you don't have to like what someone else likes. Someone else doesn't have to like what you like either, right? So just enjoy it. And if you're seeing these red lines, you're noticing those are raycasting. I'm doing for position for testing, because I was having some weird anomalies when I was testing the UI stuff to see what works and doesn't work. So that's just testing. It's the debug draw line, which is a very powerful tool. It's only in the scene view for developer. If I build this, it does not exist. It doesn't even render that code. Okay, so this part is done. I'm confident that this is working. However, there is one other piece to this puzzle, which is the scrolling. So when we scroll, yeah, so this is another one that I need to fix. You'll see where the finger is, right? But it didn't scroll to where it should have. Like when it scrolls down, right, it should scroll and keep that object within view, but it's not. However, in 2D, when I'm using a 2D camera, because of the orientation of the camera and the position that's being used, I get a different outcome, and I need to make it work in both scenarios. So I need to change that logic a little bit. Where's my lobby? So exact same prefab, exact same thing. When I go over to friends, so here you can see that it works exactly as intended. So I want it to work like this, right? So it gives you that really nice movement, and whatever you select will always be active. So even if I select this one, I mouse click it, it'll move in to the viewable area. Whereas if you, oh yeah, I need to fix that too. So this is up and down arrows, and gamepad works the same, touchscreen works the same. What I wanted to do is just keep it in the masked viewable area for the selection. Unfortunately though, when it's in a 3D camera position, because of the way I implemented the logic, where are we? Game room. Because of the way I implemented the logic, I used world position. I should have used local position. I think I used world position because it was easier. Whereas if I used, if I would have just spent a little bit more time and figured out the local position calculation, this wouldn't be what it is right now. But I will get it. Oh, there goes my character falling off the screen. It's okay. I will get it to work. So I think that's the next thing right here, is to get this, the scrolling thing working. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I want to do. Do you know what makes a game fun? Because from what you say, every people's definition of fun is different. So that means maybe some people enjoy RPG game and some not. And that's what I want to make unique games, and everyone likes it, but I can't guarantee everyone likes my game. Okay, that's you're on the right track. So the first part, what makes a game fun? That is entirely subjective. Some people like to play, let's say, Candy Crush. Some people like to play first-person shooters. Some people like to play real-time strategy games. And some people like to play RPG games. Some people like to play all games. Some people appreciate all games. Some people like certain games but don't like other types. RPG genre itself is very popular for many reasons, but there is a lot of people who do not like RPG games. You cannot, well, let me take a step back. You can't make something that everyone will like. That is impossible. Everyone has different preferences. Even in the RPG games, there's subcategories within RPG games that will differ from one person's preference to another. So what you should be doing, and this is my suggestion, is look at, what do you believe is fun? What is it fun in terms of both from your point of view of the creator, of what you think is fun to create and what you think is fun to play. Because when you make a game, what you're doing, of course, is taking the things that you learned from previous games or ideas that are from other things that may not even be a game. It might be a movie. It might be a book that you read. It might be a conversation you had with a friend. It could be something that you fantasized all up on your own and you want to bring it into existence, right? So it's impossible. Even this game that I have made, the Flash game, I've had, in terms of feedback, I've had more negative feedback than I've had positive feedback. And I've had people accuse me of basically stealing other people's ideas and then changing it and making it my own. But it's not really that. There's more to it, right? You have to make something that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, but you think someone else will, then you missed a very important step. You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it first to be able to share that enjoyment with someone else. Now, of course, that's different when we're talking about AAA industries, where if you're working somewhere, you may not necessarily enjoy what you're making. It's just a job, but you're given direction of what to do, right? But I'm talking purely from an indie developer, individual point of view, like myself. You have to enjoy it. Don't worry about trying to get other people to enjoy it. Of course, share it and get feedback, but everyone has an opinion, but not everyone's opinion is correct or relevant, right? So you can show something to your friend who likes first-person shooters, and they can say, yeah, okay, that's cool. But, it's not really my thing. Fair, right? You can show it to a complete stranger and they can, like me, I once went to a meetup, right? To a meetup, to a game development meetup where we were sharing our games, right? I was sitting at a table and I showed this guy the Flash client, this thing, and I showed a video of the gameplay to someone. And the guy looks me right in the face and he says, that sucks. It's terrible, right? And I'm like, wait, what? Like, Seriously? You're just gonna like just like that? I'm like, okay, that hurt, of course, but at the same time, it wasn't for that guy. He didn't get it, right? It's not for that individual, right? So you can't please everyone. And if you try to please everyone, it's been said many times before, you're going to end up pleasing no one. Your goal is, as a creator, learn, have fun, enjoy, share it with others to enjoy, right? Don't try to please everyone. Find the group, find your target audience of who likes a certain type of game. Let's say you wanted to make something that has a similar fighting style to, we'll say, classic Final Fantasy III, right? Let's say if you wanted to do something like that, right? That's an awesome RPG game, very well known. Or maybe you want to do something that's more like Breath of Fire or Lufia or one of the other types of classic games, right? Only certain people are going to really appreciate that for what it is. But those people, however small percentage, is going to be a very, very large number of people. The challenge isn't so much getting it out there, it's getting it out there to the right people, right? Of course, there's challenge with getting recognition or not recognition, getting it out there in front of the audience who play games, but to find the audience that enjoys it, including me, this project that I'm making as well, it's challenging. It's very challenging to try to get it out in front of those who are interested in it, right? Of course, things have changed a lot since back in the day when I made it in Flash. Right now, I would have a completely different approach in getting it out there, like Steam, itch.io, two great places to put anything that you've made, specifically itch.io for your first game. Absolutely upload it onto there and see what you get in terms of feedback, and then continue to learn. It's something that is going to be an ongoing process. But if you want to make, let's say, an RPG game, your first step shouldn't be making an RPG game. Your first step, and the way this is how I would approach it, right? Me, if I was totally new, is build up the individual systems completely standalone from one another, meaning prototype it, build out the UI. How would the UI look? How would the UI be playable? How would actions be performed? How do you move your character around, right? How do you store save state? How do you store the user's inventory? How do you display the user's inventory? Each one of these is a different system or subsystem, right? You can pick whichever one you want and build something out. Or maybe you want to go straight into the combat. You want to just go to the meat of it and be like, I want to make a fun combat system, right? So then you go into the combat system, you just purely focus on the combat system and you're building just that piece of it. It doesn't need any visuals whatsoever. It could be entirely text. It needs zero visuals, right? But if you want to, you can make a very simple visual with temporary graphics, placeholders as it's commonly called. Just have circles and squares, right? And then go for it. Build out the combat system, right? And then that way you learn, right? And then you continue to build out the different systems and subsystems, right? As you build those, you'll acquire knowledge, and next time you would have built it better anyway, because it's about progression. It's about iterating and doing better, right? So the next time you go to do it, you build it out better. You build it out a little different, right? And eventually you'll keep building out these systems and get to a point where you're more comfortable with it. And then what you can do is then start to slowly merge the systems, right? So you'll take combat and UI and merge it. You'll take maybe game controller, right? And combat. So then you can play the combat with a game controller, right? You can build out some other systems and start combining them, and before you know it, you'll get a better understanding of it, and you'll be able to fit the pieces of the puzzle together in a more I guess elegant manner, for lack of a better term. And then it'll be scalable, and you'll keep building on it, and then you'll have yourself a prototype. You'll have your very first game that you can put up on itch.io and share it with everybody. It doesn't need to be fantastic. It doesn't need to be great. Just get your first one out there. It could be buggy as hell, as long as it doesn't crash right off the beginning. Don't put that up there. If you open it and it crashes and it closes, don't put that up there. But if there's some like UI flaws or some little oddities, it doesn't matter. Get your first one out there. Another one actually that's really good is what's his name? I think it's I forget the name. It's subjective, but maybe open world game might be the answer, because it gives people a freedom to experience anything in their own world that has its own rules too. Yeah, you can do anything that you want. There is no limit. You can do anything that you want in terms of game, but always start small and then build up. Thomas Brush? Yes, it is. Okay, so this guy, he's also really good. He makes great videos, right? And he's got some good stuff, especially inspirational stuff from experience of how to just kind of get the ball rolling, things to watch out for, things to do and not to do kind of thing. So he's also another resource. So I would definitely recommend adding his videos to the list to watch. I know you're feeling when someone dislikes your own creation in front of the creator. Yeah, I think we all know that. Demonic Microwave, hello and welcome. How are you doing today? Hope you're doing okay and looking forward to the weekend. First time chat. Okay. Yeah, so I highly recommend Thomas Brush as well. He's an excellent resource. I watch some of his videos from time to time. He's definitely got some good inspirational stuff. He's really good for that. He speaks from the heart, and he doesn't BS you. He's got his own training course thing that he does too. He really kind of puts that forward. You don't have to do that, of course. Just take what he provides for free. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. There's a lot of other people who make excellent content that you can look into. Okay, so with this piece done, but yeah, the irony of that story that I mentioned earlier is that going to a game meetup and having someone watch a video of your game, look you in the face, in your eyes, and tell you it sucks. I was like, okay, but you didn't have to do that to my face, right? You could at least just, keep your opinion to yourself. Some people are just like that. Don't let them get to you. Really, don't. Because I've had a lot of people in my personal life growing up who like back in the day, being into technology and having interest in technology, it was really frowned upon. You would be called the nerd or the loser or the propeller hat or whatever. And people made all kinds of dumb jokes. Like anytime they would see you, they'd say things like, oh, did you forget your pocket protector or something really ridiculous, right? Those terms aren't around as much anymore, but that kind of stigma still hasn't quite gone away, right? So there's going to be those people that are close to you, that are in your group of friends and whatnot. Don't let that stuff get to you, right? That stuff, it's just in one ear, out the other, don't care, right? It used to bother me a long time ago when I was a kid, or should I say when I was a teenager, but just don't let that stuff get to you. You are your own person. Just whatever you like is entirely your own decision for you. So don't worry about it. Just do what you enjoy doing. And it's perfectly fine to share it with others. and get their feedback. You should never be concerned about that, because different people will give you different feedback. Even someone who's non-technical can give you feedback and say, hey, that looks really cool, but what about this? Or did you consider this? Or did you consider that, right? People with non-technical skills can still give you valuable feedback, regardless of it's positive or negative. But you have to be willing to take the negative with the positive. It's just the way it is. Okay, so I'm okay with that. Circular menu, I'm good with that. I'm not going to be messing around with this stuff. I want to specifically make a little bit of room. Environment dynamic object. I think I'll close some of this stuff temporarily, just because it's not immediately what I'm going to be working on. Layer tile map, animation property curve. Okay, so we got scroll view, and this is what I'm going to be working on now. I need the, actually that's not the right component class. What I want is the, what was it called? I think it was called auto scroll. Yeah, scroll view auto scroll. That's the one that I want. It's my class. Okay, so this one is the one that does the positional move to. And I took a shortcut that I now kind of regret, but also don't. It's because it required a bit more logic, and I didn't think it would come back in the way that it did. But I used position, meaning world position, so the global position, if you want to call it that. And what I should have been doing is using local position. But local position required a bit more math. So I kind of took a shortcut, and I went with the easier option. And that easier option is kind of, oh, wrong screen. Whoops. The easier option is what kind of led me to the current usability flaw, because I just didn't take that into account. It's, of course, a logical flaw. It's just something I didn't think about at the time. So, you know, whatever. I'll fix it. But overall, though, I think it's pretty good. For those of you that are new, that are just coming in, hello and welcome. If you like this content, I do broadcast on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can hit that follow button or hit the like button on YouTube, and just to show your support of the content. And yeah, come by anytime and watch me work on the project. I've been working on it for quite a while. The videos, all the past videos, or most of them, are indexed on YouTube if you want to watch any of the previous stuff. But yeah, it's an ongoing project, and it's a fun project. I do it for educational purposes of myself, and eventually it'll be a playable game, just like the previous client predecessor, that is Flash, which I'm porting away from to be cross-platform. And it'll be playable, and it'll look really nice. And I even, so like I was saying earlier about making prototypes, I've got multiple different prototypes for different things. One of them is the environment prototype. Actually, let me just open that up real quick, and I'll show you. Oops, I did not mean to do that. Nope. Let's go with the I think it's this one. I got so many projects. I don't know. We'll just wait for it to load and see what that one is. But I'll show you the environment prototype, which doesn't really have much in terms of code logic, but I use it for testing out the environment and kind of figuring out the angle point of view, how the artwork is, how to interact with the environment. And it's got some technical challenges that I definitely need to figure out. But okay, yeah, so this is it. Okay, so here we are, and this is the environment prototype. So this is where I get to test out the artwork. I did all of this artwork myself. Really, it didn't preserve the settings. Okay, so we'll go into project settings. Go into quality. Yeah, we want it to be on medium. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, that looks better. It does have real-time shadows. I do a little bit of trickery to try to get real-time shadows mixed in with 2D artwork, but this is what it looks like. So this is, of course, not finished. It's not polished. But the cool thing is, because it's 2.5D, you can move around and do some pretty cool stuff that you traditionally would not be able to do in a normal 2.5D traditional kind of environment. So you can jump, you can do all kinds of interesting things. Jump, jump. Yeah, so this you cannot do in traditional traditional 2D, but you can do in 2.5D because it is actually 3D that's made to look like 2D and look like pixel art 2D specifically. So what you see there is actually, where are we? Right here. So this is what you see, right? But because it's a fixed camera angle, it's meant to be viewed only at the exact camera angle. All the artwork is made to be viewed at that exact camera angle. So when you view it from that camera angle, it looks very compelling and makes you think that it is 2D, but it's actually not. And you can jump even on top of stuff, right? So you can jump on top of stuff. You get real-time shadows. It's really cool. Like idea-wise, it's not original, but it's pretty cool to be able to jump on top of stuff and be able to move around in that kind of environment. It's really fun. It adds another whole level of mechanics and depth to the game, both figuratively and literally. So it's pretty cool. I think it'll add a lot to the game in terms of stuff we could do where we couldn't do stuff before, certain things. So yeah, it'll be a while still, but it's going to be so cool though. It's going to be so fun. If I can ask, how long have you been working on this project? So if you mean the Unity project specifically, I've been working on it very casually since 2020, pretty much start of 2020. So it's been on a casual basis for over 2 years on my spare time, quite consistently, with gaps in between, like when I had to move multiple times and some other stuff, personal stuff, caused breaks in between. But if you're talking the Flash client itself, we just had the 12th anniversary of the server going online. So this was a long time ago, and I had a lot more time back then. And I built this, of course, casually as well. But I would say the bulk of it I built in about 2-3 years' time. And then the rest of it, it just kind of went down from there just because I didn't have time to do much more. But if you span it out, I guess I worked on it for 5-6 years, on and off, very casually. But most of it was in the initial starting period, of course. But yeah, it takes a long time. It to make these large projects, especially multiplayer. Anytime you add multiplayer to a project, you're adding a significant amount more things that you need to consider, because then you're not just making a client, right? So the client communicates with the server. The server is entirely its own project. It is completely its own project. It has all of its own code. The client is in ActionScript. The server is in Java. But then where do you store that information, right? Well, you have a server. You need to store it in a database. So MySQL, that becomes kind of a mini project on its own to try to figure out where to store information, how to structure the database information, and optimize it so it's indexed correctly and you can get your queries, both your reads and your writes, in an efficient manner, and you're not bringing the server down to its knees. And then the other project, also part of this, is the website. So I also made the website. So that runs on PHP, right? So there's a lot of different things. So this, I consider this to be like, it's not one project, it's multiple projects, each one of them their own respective project. So yeah, it took a lot of time, but the reason why I like doing these things is because you get to explore and you get to touch on every single area that you normally would not be able to. The artwork, the UI, all of that. The entirety of the UI is all me. I did all of the UI stuff. I did the environment stuff. I was, and the other artwork, I was involved in most of it, right? I was involved in every single piece that you see. I drew this character here, right? I did not draw this character here. I paid someone else to draw that. The environment that you see, I did the original concept and then had an artist that I worked with that I paid them to create it, and so on, right? So there's a lot of things, like just even managing a project is a project in its own, right? Figuring out your roadmap, prioritizing tasks, and figuring those things out on a project this big is a project in itself, right? But that's what I liked about it, in that because I did all of this stuff, because I had to figure out how the multiplayer communication synchronization of packets works and optimize that as best as I can, it allowed me to learn from every single one of those pieces that I touched on, which was everything, right? So it was the best educational experience in terms of development that I could possibly ask for, hands down. Even though I worked as a developer, like a web developer, I would say over a decade ago now. I worked for a few years as a web developer. So mostly PHP, and then back then Flash was popular. So that's where I got to learn quite a bit of Flash. But even still, I didn't really learn those specific details, the complexity and all that stuff, until you go into a big project, because then you have to think at scale. And that's the huge differentiating factor. If you're making something that you know is going to be tiny little project and you're just throwing some stuff together, you're not thinking about scale. When you have to think about managing thousands of class files and millions of lines of code, that is scale. So you have to structure just the way that you even structure, or even file names, folder names, class names, UI navigation, everything has to follow a structure because it needs to be scalable, right? That's what I mean by scale, right? And to go bigger, like even bigger, like those AAA titles and whatnot, you have to think even a bigger scale, which is why they use industry standard solutions for those kinds of things, which I don't go to that level. It's a bit extreme, but you definitely want to think about scale. So even on a small project now, because I've done that and I've done it at that scale, even on small projects, these tiny little one-off things, when I do that, I'm actually building it to be scalable, right? Because then any one of these prototypes that I take, I'm like, okay, so I did this way, but what if I want to take it and bring it into a project, right? Of course, you can't just copy and paste the whole thing. You can salvage certain pieces of it. You can rip it apart and piece it back together, but that needs to be scalable conceptually, right? So you want to avoid some shortcomings in that regard. And you'll only really learn that stuff hands-on, right? You can't really read about it in a book and get it conceptually. It's one of those hands-on things. You need to get in there. You need to make some mistakes, and then you'll learn from those mistakes, and then you'll make more mistakes, and you'll learn from those mistakes, and then eventually you'll get to a point where you'll look at scale as a different thing. You'll think about scale differently. And because of that, you'll structure your logic differently. Yeah, so it's really interesting too, though, and I've had this conversation with others before who are technical, and if you learn programming because it is so technical, it changes the way you think for the better. It does. It absolutely does. You approach things so, and this is something I try to explain to a lot of people. I try not to use the word problem or the word issue. Now, I'll explain why in a minute, right? Because the way you should be approaching something is no matter how you look at it, you're approaching it something that is a task that needs to be done. To perform this task, there's going to be multiple challenges or hurdles that need to be overcome, right? If the task is really large and it's really challenging, it's because you're approaching it as a whole, as an entity. What you do is you take that task and you break it up into smaller pieces, and then each one of those pieces, you break them up into smaller pieces, and then each one of those individual subtasks now are a lot simpler to solve. You solve the individual subtasks and you piece them back together into the larger pieces. You figure out how the larger pieces fit together, right? And you got yourself the complete solution. Now, if you're calling something a problem, right, or something along those lines, it means you're not up to the challenge. You're not understanding it. You're not really looking at it in the way that is analytical, right? You're bringing emotion into it, and you need to separate emotion from logic, right? You'll always find your best logic, right, in terms of solving a challenge. You'll find it when you're not emotionally attached to something, right? That's why if you get frustrated with programming, you generally want to step away and go get some fresh air, right? Because you want to be at a balanced level. That is when you'll find your best solutions. So that's why when I look at something, even if I make a mistake or whatever it may be, I look at it as, okay, this is a task that I need to do, or this is a challenge that I'm up for, or this is a hurdle that I need to overcome. And to do that, I have to do this, this, and this, or whatever the case may be, right? I don't say this is a problem, right, to be solved, right? No, it is a puzzle that needs to be solved, yes. It shouldn't be looked at as a problem. I think that's entirely based on your point of view. And when you start thinking that way, you look at everything differently. And I mean everything. Making a game alone feels like doing multiple activity in once, and it costs time and effort for doing it, and thinking that's what makes it hard to develop a game, right? The alone part, yes, that is definitely what makes it challenging in a matter of speaking. It's because you don't have other people to bounce ideas off of. I don't have anyone that I can just ring up and be like, hey, so I'm currently stuck on this thing, and I'm having challenges with it. Can I bounce some ideas off you and see what kind of solutions we can come up with so I can solve this, right? You don't have that opportunity. It doesn't exist. You can do it online, but generally, if it's something really complex, right, you need to bring someone on board to grasp the complexity of it, to grasp the task that needs to be done, and then to be able to find a solution that appropriately fits your specific use case scenario of what you need for your specific project, right? So developing alone is has its challenges for sure, but at the same time though, when you're developing alone, right, you're your own boss in a sense, right? Your creativity is entirely your own. Your work hours are entirely your own. Whatever you want to experiment with, whatever you want to do at the time is entirely your own. And oftentimes, what I hear people say is that I'm not motivated to do that. How do you find motivation or inspiration? And the answer is very simple. You don't. Motivation and inspiration, they come and they go. You do not want motivation and inspiration to be your only source of fuel for working on something. What you want is persistence. What you want is dedication, right? What you want is, there's another word I'm thinking of and I can't think of it right now, but you want to be committed to something because it's what you believe will be ultimately what you want to do, and something that you will enjoy, not just short-term, mid-term, and long-term, but something that you will get educational value out of it, but also has value for you, right? And I don't mean monetary. I mean something that has value for you, because to learn and to know and to understand in a way has value in itself, right? In my day-to-day life, I come across a lot of people who just don't have technical understanding of things, and they can't figure out how to work a TV. They can't figure out how to work a microwave. They can't figure out how to do a certain thing on their smartphone that I can do in a matter of seconds, right? So those people get frustrated and they're like, oh, this thing sucks, or this thing isn't doing what I want it to do, right? But no, this thing is doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's the user who's using it doesn't understand how to use the specific device in the way that it's intended, right? So that's just one example of value. But another is tools, right? Humans are a master of tools, right? That is what evolution has brought us to this point where we're a master of tools. No matter what you think of it, we make tools. A cell phone is a tool. A car is a tool. A hammer is a tool as well, right? But we make tools. You need to know how to use these tools to get value out of these tools. If you don't know how to drive, you don't know how to use it. It's just a hunk of metal, right? So different things have different types of value that they bring to you as an individual, right? So take that how you will. That's great thinking. Think a problem as a task to overcome. I never have that mindset before. I highly recommend that, actually. I really do. Look at it as a task and look at it as a challenge. It is a point of view. It is a way of looking at it, meaning that I am up to it. If you say it is a problem, it means right from the get-go, okay, the only thing that's a problem is the point of view of the lens that you're looking at it. That is the problem, because you're looking at it as a problem. But it shouldn't be. It's a task. It's a challenge. It's an obstacle. That's all it is, right? And if more of us thought that way, I think it would be a huge difference, right? I work with people. I know so many people that I've known. Everything is a problem. Everything is a problem. Oh, I need to be somewhere in 10 minutes. It's a problem. No, that is not a problem. That devalues the meaning of the word problem. If everything is a problem, then nothing is a problem. because the only problem is the point of view. That's it. And that allows you to think and plan differently. It really helps. It does. Okay. The other word I was looking for is issue. Problem and issue. Those are the two things you should not be using when thinking of tasks that need to be done. Okay, so how do we solve what it is that I want to solve? So here is where the challenge comes into play. It's because I used position. I did not use transform.local position, which is what I want to use. But to use transform.local position means that I need to take certain offsets into account, which I am currently not accounting for. So how do I... It's really simple actually to solve this. It's just right now. So I've had a full work day. It's been a long day. It's been a long week, and I'm at the end of it, and I'm trying to do something like this, which sometimes works out, sometimes does not. What I find is that after some good rest, usually I come and I solve these things much easier. Morning is the best time to program. Get up, have a good breakfast, do your thing, morning routine, whatever it may be. That is the best time to do programming. Late at night, depending on your day, of course, is generally not the best time. And I've been up since 5:30-ish. And right now the time for me is 7:31. Yeah. Okay. All right. So how do we solve this? We get the border top. Okay, so what I want to do then is I don't want to just break everything all at once. What I'll do is I'll duplicate the functions temporarily, and then I'll see if I can run them in parallel and get the solution that I want that way. So I'll change this because I want both of these. So I'll change this to get object border top relative and get object border bottom relative. And the reason why I'm calling relative is because then I'm going to use transform dot wait, I thought it was transform dot. Oh, it's local. Okay, I should change that from relative to local then. Yes, I should. So instead of relative, we'll go and we'll change this to local. Yeah. Okay, and then we'll change position to local position. Okay, so I'm not using these functions yet, but I will, of course. So where's my two usages? Okay, so when we get that, so that if we use how would that work? So then what I want is the relative local position. I want the relative parent position, or the top two positions. Oh, I'm going to have to experiment with that. I'm going to have to experiment with it and see what the outputs are, and then use the, oh, of course it falls. I'll use that. Yeah, so I'll need to analyze the information. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Let's see. So what I want is, right now we're just directly getting it. So we're getting the mask border. That's going to be consistent. That's not going to change. Or is it? Let's do a difference, actually. So we'll say debug.log. Debug.log, and we will get the original stuff. So let's color it so they kind of stand out a little bit. So we'll go with generic functions dot format text color, and then we'll say generic functions dot color, and we'll go with a nice let's go the soft blue. Okay, so inside of this one, what we'll do is mask Y position top. So that will be the up position, and then mask the down. So the Y, actually, I wanna shorten this. So the Y top position, and then the Y bottom position. Okay, so we'll go with that. I've seen many developers use the underscore as replacement of space slash used as the beginning, like underscore player health, player score, and maybe etc. Okay. So if you're asking me the usage of that, so my usage of that is generally this, and I'll give you an example of that. So you'll notice that there's a mix. This one starts with underscore, and then it's a viewport rect transform. Now, why does this one have an underscore, but this one does not? Well, the answer is very simple, right? There's a general standard that if it is a member of the class, whether it's private or public, generally public, you don't want to use public, you want to encapsulate it into a getter and setter. But if it's a member of this class, it is this. And the reason for that is because I could have two variables be the exact same name, pretty much, and I can differentiate between the two. Where was I? So I can have two variables and differentiate between the two. So if I had, let's go with float offset x equals, we'll say 10f. It's an arbitrary value, right? But then if I also had underscore offset x, right? The differences between the two, and because both of these could exist, let me just do this. Right? The usage would be that this one would be generally private to the class, and this one would be a local variable, right? So you could have both of them coexist, but because this one starts with underscore, right? It means it's a private member in the class. So you never use it in a local, so inside of this function, I wouldn't declare something with underscore. I would declare it without the underscore, right? And then in terms of having, let's say, float player underscore ID equals, we'll say 100. Actually, that would probably be an integer. So player ID versus int player ID which is known as camel hump or various types of names. This is just preference, right? This is a common Unix standard or Linux standard as well, as to use not use cases and use underscore instead. This is really just personal preference. I think both are valid, but I'm used to using the uppercase, lowercase mixture myself. So those are just a couple of preferences and things that you can use however you like. But if you ask other seasoned professionals, they'll give you a different point of view on it. But in the simplest form, that's how I use it. And functions, you start with a capital, right? Whereas variables, you never start with a capital, right? So that also helps differentiate. So this is a function. This is a variable. This does not start with a capital. This starts with a capital, therefore it is a function. And what I meant by encapsulate is, so let's say we take this, because it's private, anything that references this class cannot access this. But if you want to make it accessible, you could use public, and you could say, and there's a shorter way of doing it, but I won't do that. So this is what I would do. Capital, right? We need to say it, the type as well. So type, and then from there, you would say get, which would be return underscore viewport rect transform, and then set if you wanted to, underscore viewport rect transform equals value. So what this does is it encapsulates this function, or sorry, this protected private member. So this is never exposed directly, and then you can access it through encapsulation, which means you access it through this function. So this is very common to do as well. The other way is to just call the function be get viewport rect transform and set viewport rect transform. But again, it comes to preference, but this is very common to use encapsulation. And to do a shortcut, you double click on your variable, hold Control, press R followed by E, and you get this pop up. You only want this one, and it will create this for you. So it created it in this format, but it's the same as what I just did. So it's a nice little shortcut, which I don't mind, but I like the other format personally. I don't like this format. Yeah, so I hope that answers your questions. Okay, so what I want to do then is, so we got mask, Y position top, Y position bottom. And then what I want is the target, same idea. So I'll just add these in there. So then we will have target top and target bottom. This would be the top part. This would be the bottom part. I just want to compare these values, right? So this is just for testing. That means to do this though, now I need the other one. So I'm going to copy that. Copy that for testing. Okay, so these ones, I'm just going to add a test. Actually, no, not test. We called it local. Local. Oops. Okay. And then same idea. I'm going to copy that right here. But then we'll change these to their local counterpart. And then we'll change this from a blue color. We'll make this a violet. Okay, let's do that. All right, so we'll have two outputs. One is going to be soft blue. The other one is going to be violet. and it'll give us the values. And then this helps me understand, because I understand things better when I can see the numbers, right? Of course, the other thing that we can do is use the debug.drawLine, which I fully intend to do, and we'll get to that. It's a step-by-step of building up the solution, because it doesn't just all come at once, right? I'm looking to change a specific piece of logic that is already functioning. Okay, so there's our differences. So this is this one is the default, and then this one is the local, right? But that one is a bit different. So what we'll do is we'll go down, 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 and then this is the one that I want, right? So now we have some values to compare. Okay, so let's see how much of a difference. The Y positions, they look the same. Oh, right, because it's the mask, of course. The mask position doesn't change. Okay, so that means we won't need to change the mask position. What we need is, yeah, we need this. We need to get the purple to match the Y, or the blue, or we need to get the blue to match the purple. So the logic currently, of course, is using these. And so how can I approach this? I got to go, thanks for the advice and the knowledge. I may be watching your stream again. Well, you're welcome. And have a great day. Have a great weekend. Yeah, come by, hang out anytime. Happy to share my knowledge. I'm not an expert, so don't take what I say as absolute fact by any means. Check for yourself. I've been wrong on things before, and I'm sure I'll be wrong on things again. But if I know something, I will happily share it. Okay, so what is the difference? Difference is a small value. But what is the difference? The difference would be the container. Let's look at the float. So we'll go with, actually, we'll go with difference of Y equals. So which one is higher? The first one's higher. Okay, so we'll go this minus, whoops, nope, not that. I meant to say this one. This minus this. Okay, so now we'll have debug.log. So we'll have difference of Y. So with difference of Y, what I want to see is what causes that difference. I believe it's the parent object. It would be the local position of the container which holds the objects. And if that is it, then this will be a very simple solution. If it's not, then we'll see. Okay, so the difference gets greater, greater, and greater. Okay. So what I want is, I want to see what this difference matches up to. And I have a feeling it is the container, this. So difference should be hopefully this dot transform dot local position dot y. So I hope that's it. If not, I'll have to if not, I'll have to figure it out. No, I don't think that is it. No, definitely not. Okay. So from here, difference is 0. I was kind of hoping it would be a simple solution. I'm just not thinking clearly right now. That's why it's more difficult than it needs to be. Let's actually look at the structuring. Yeah, let's do that. We'll look at the structuring and see, based on the structuring, so we've got scroll view. How can I approach this? I'll need to take the position from the topmost, maybe not the topmost, but at the point where the canvas mask is. Okay, so I think from this point, so from the canvas, we'll need to use this as the anchor point, really, because from here, from here has the access to, where's our mask? Mask would be over here. Oh, okay, so there's our mask. Okay, so from this point then, so from viewport, is where we need to start getting the positions from. So if we go from viewport, then that means viewport has content, and then content has the individual selectable buttons. Viewport to content. Is that how we get the position of the mask? A viewport rect transform. Where do we get the target border top? Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is pretty consistent for now. But if we move the camera, the relative position will change. Right, it's because the camera hasn't moved. That's why the numbers are kind of throwing me off a little bit. We're getting matching numbers because the camera is at the 0, 0 position. So what if we move the camera slightly? So we'll grab our camera, right? And then just move it over a little bit. Now these numbers shouldn't match. And they do, still. I'm looking at the mask numbers because these, they match on the top and bottom. Okay, let's move it more drastically. Nope, still matches. Okay, so much for that idea then. I thought there... Okay, so that's something I'll have to address afterward then. For right now, the main numbers I'm looking at is the top position and the bottom position of the... So this would be the world position or the global position, and this would be the local position, more specifically the top and bottom, because the Y position, it doesn't really change. Or sorry, the X position doesn't change. It's the Y position that changes. That's what I meant to say. I'll get it though. I'll get it. It's just a matter of time. Okay, we're still good. Still got about half an hour or so. I think I can solve this in that time. That would be great. Okay, so what is it that I want to do though? And how can I get there? Okay, let's see. We got our test stuff. This should actually be up here. Okay, so I don't care about the mask because it doesn't seem to be changing for now. My main focus is the target object, the top and the bottom, because I need to be able to do a difference. I'm just not thinking clearly right now. Should your camera position be locked linked to your objects? I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean by be locked linked? You mean have a target object that it follows? Is that what you mean? Just not thinking clearly right now. It's actually simple to solve. Okay, focus. Oh. I just noticed I'm using the wrong function calls. Wow. I didn't even think about that. So this should be local. That's why the numbers were not making, oh my God. That's why the numbers weren't making sense. I was moving the camera and the numbers, whoops, I don't know what happened there. I was moving the camera, but the numbers just weren't what I was expecting. When you move the camera, should the objects move as well? They do. Specifically, let me show you what I'm trying to do here. Is the UI is a child of the camera. So it moves as a part of the camera. So the camera is the parent, and you can see the angle of view of the camera, and you can see the UI, right? So the UI will always move with the camera, always. So the challenge here is with this focus object. So this object here, let's say we select the first one. You'll notice my hand pointer is not in the right position, but let's ignore that. When we scroll, right, to the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one, it's supposed to move, right? Because this one is partially out of the viewing mask area of this scroll view. This is supposed to move up to be about this position, right? So it's supposed to be roughly in this position. And then if I go down one more, that one is supposed to come up. And the reason why it doesn't is because when I initially did this, I did it in 2D. So let me show you working on a camera that's not angled, and this camera was angled. So on a camera that is not angled, it works perfectly fine. So when the camera is just fixed, so this one is just 2D. So watch, when I move down one, it comes in perfectly into the exact position it's supposed to. It doesn't matter what I do. It will always, so this is not built into Unity. This is a function that I made myself. So it will always be, and it's perfect for that type of really nice navigation. So anyone that becomes the active selection, so let's say we were to click on that one, it immediately comes into the active selection position, right? If we click on this one, it immediately comes in. Ignore the navigation that pops up for now. But it doesn't matter if you're using touch, if you're using mouse pointer, or if you're using arrows, or if you're using gamepad, whatever the selection is will always come into the viewable mask area. That also takes into account the padding up at the top and the bottom, as well as the spacing in between. So it'll always be in the perfect position. Now, going back to a 3D camera. Now, the same logic, it works, but it doesn't work in the way that it's intended, because it's using the actual object position and not the local position. So if it was using local position, right, then it would be able to travel to the appropriate location. But because of the use of the local position, I need to take into account the offsets of the parenting, and that's where I'm just not thinking clearly right now. So first selection, second, third, fourth, and then for the next one, this should scroll up, but it doesn't, because look at where the finger is. Look at where this is. So it's miscalculating because it's not taking into account the angle of the camera, right? It's still assuming that it's a 2D camera, which is not, and that's where the logic fails. So our current selection being, where are we? Where is mask? Okay, so that's our current selection. That should have moved up. Just like when I go to this one should have moved up, but it doesn't. But when we go down here, because of that angle, so it's using it, even though it's on an angle, it's ignoring the angle. And it's using it almost as if it was just perfectly standing up vertically. And that's where the logic fails. Oops. So that's what I want to do, is just change the logic. It's really simple. It's really simple. I just can't think clearly right now because I'm too tired to do this, to get it to work in the way that I want it to work. So that's what I'm trying to do. And now the numbers are, because I was calling the wrong function too, now these numbers make more sense. They're way off. And I mean way off. Okay, so this at least is another step in the right direction. So this is using position that is the global position. This is using the position that is the local position. Yeah, and they're way off. Okay, but that's at least one step closer. One step closer. We'll get there. Hopefully I can do it in this broadcast, but we're reaching near the end of day. I've been up for quite a while, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm not as logical as I normally would be right now. Okay. So what we need to do is from the, what's the hierarchy point? We want it from the mask position. So from viewport. So from viewport, viewport has the mask, okay. So we want to go viewport plus content no, we go viewport for one, and then for the individuals, we need to go position minus content to get, yeah. It's not complicated. I just can't visualize it in my mind right now. Normally I would. Okay, let's type it out. So the parent position start should be at viewport. Viewport has the mask. Okay, so viewport has the mask. Viewport has a rect that we use the top position and the bottom position to be able to calculate the position of the nested child object. So let's look at we already have it, don't we? Viewport rect transform. Okay, so we already have it right here. So we have our start positions, which is that mask. So the up, so the top and the down, which is the bottom line. So if we think of it as a horizontal line, we have the top and we have the bottom. From there, the hierarchy goes so it goes viewport, content, and then items. Okay, so we have this. What we need then is to get item minus content to get its position in the viewport. It sounds really simple, doesn't it? I just can't right now just... Okay, so we want target border top relative. So to do that, what we would do is take the, let's go with the up position. So we want that minus content dot transform dot local position dot y and then what do we have? Let's have a look at that and see, what does that number give us? Does it match what I think it should? Probably not, but let's experiment with it anyway and see what we get. Okay, so target position top, we're getting a minus 1.99999 whatever. So we'll say basically minus 2. What is the top position of the... Yeah, it doesn't match. Because the mask, so this is the mask Y top, mask Y bottom. So if you think about it, whatever the mask is, so this would be its global position, and then this would be its local position. I find it a little strange that the local position is such a high number compared to the global position, which is a smaller number. Yeah, no, this is not working out right now. And the only reason why it's not working out, and I keep saying this, I know, I feel like a bit of a broken record. I'm just not thinking clearly right now. I think I need some good rest, and then I'll come back to it. No point struggling with something. Let's see if there's something simpler that I can do right now. Something that I can just experiment with, just to see that it is working. So what we did was we did the circular navigation. So that is working to an extent. I remember there was it would break at a certain point though. We click something, go back, and focus wouldn't go back. How did that work? It was some kind of anomaly. Maybe it was in the lobby. Let's go to the lobby. Okay, so we go to friends, click here, go back. Okay, yeah, so we lost focus there. It's interesting. Since you're now working in 3D on this, are you taking into account the change of position along the Z axis? For the UI, no, because the UI is all smushed together. It's all 2D and it uses the layer for the most part. But what I am taking into account with the UI is the camera rotation. Because the camera rotates, it changes the X, the Y, and the Z. So before, when I was able to get away with certain things and ignore the rotation, I can't do that anymore. And now I have to go back and fix those things, which is what I've been doing incrementally. So that's something I definitely need to take into account, because our camera is a 55-degree fixed angle point of view. It's not going to change the camera point of view, but the camera point of view should be irrelevant. The logic should be able to take it into account, so that if the camera is at 50 or at, we'll say 45, it shouldn't matter, right? I just need to be more cautious and be more mindful of when I implement UI logic. I'm not using some kind of equation or logic that is reliant on purely 2D of a camera just looking straight at the object. It should be something that takes into account the rotation of the camera specifically. Yeah, I just it was just one of those things that I completely overlooked it. I didn't think about it at the time, but I've gotten a good chunk of it, of all the UI stuff that I've gone back and I've been fixing. We're at about the I would say 80-90% of it now works, and it doesn't matter if the camera is 2D or 3D or what the rotation of the camera is. So yeah, it's getting there. It's just going to take a little while longer. We'll definitely get there. The cool thing though was that so in not in this broadcast, but between this broadcast and the previous one, I got the touch screen controls finally working. That was awesome. Getting the touch screen controls working, that was great. And then also realizing that now, what's it called? Unity Remote works with the new input system and the new event system. I had no idea that they got it working. It's not something that they advertised or anything like that. So I was using the profiler, and I was using a build. So I would build to the device and then debug it through the profiler is kind of how I was doing it. And it works, but it's a bit of a clumsy solution. It doesn't work as well as being able to use the Unity remote and just having touchscreen working. Ironically, though, it wasn't working for like 2 years, but the old input system and the old event system, of course, still worked with Unity remote. I don't know why it took them like 2+ years to fix it, but it took them a long time to get that working. So that was a nice little thing to find out about. What I'm thinking is maybe I could do a quick build, because I can't use Unity remote when my camera is active, because my camera uses Droid Cam, and it's connected to my cell phone, my old cell phone, which I use as a camera. So ADB is unable to differentiate. So therefore Unity remote fails. So I have to disable the camera if I want to use Unity remote, which is fine when I do local testing on my own. It doesn't matter, right? But when I do testing on broadcast, I want the camera to be active at the same time. So unfortunately, it doesn't work because they conflict. So you'll see oftentimes too, when I do something, ADB will reset the connections that are active, or it'll check them or something, but it'll break the camera connection, and the camera will go completely pitch black because it's disconnected. And then I have to wait for Unity to do what it's doing, and then I can reactivate my camera again. So it's these weird little things that you don't really think about, but then only after you experience it, you're like, oh yeah, so that's a thing, right? It's just the little stuff, but it's all good though. And so if you guys were here or were watching, I don't know who was watching, to be honest. The last broadcast was the 12th anniversary video of where I showed off. Or not necessarily showed off, it's not new, but where I was playing with the members, and we were playing in the game room and in the world. So if you're wondering what the game is kind of going to play like, I would highly recommend watching that video. It's up on YouTube. It's the 12th anniversary video. It's one of the ones that I did recently on my YouTube account. And then if you're interested about the project, the history, and the roadmap, definitely check out the 10th anniversary video that's on YouTube. I think that one is pretty good in terms of explaining what we're kind of working towards. So go into build settings. Okay, so those are all good. Okay, so what I'll do is, I'll do a build and see how it goes. So the camera is going to die. It'll get disconnected very soon. But this will push it onto my device, and I'll show you guys what I see on the device. And the tool that I use for that is a nice little tool that was made by some awesome people. I have no idea who they are or whatever, but It's a really handy tool, and I definitely recommend it. And it serves a lot of different purposes. Like if you want to share your screen of a device, of an Android device specifically, to others and whatnot. There's some significant advantages to using it. Oh wow, it has not disconnected the camera yet. Usually it would have done that already by this point. So the tool that I use is Screen Copy. It's open source. You can grab it off of all kinds of sources. It's really neat. Oh wow, the camera did not disconnect. Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, so since this is running, so what I do is navigate to here. So easy to get them mixed up when you're flipping between Linux and this. Okay, so the tool, and here's the advantage of the tool, is I'll use my cheat sheet. Okay. And it shows you a high quality rendering. So the finger, of course, is what's being moved. So what you're looking at is my screen. It's got very little latency, and it gives you a nice high quality output. It has a lot of uses for sharing a device screen with someone else. Like let's say you're in a Microsoft Teams meeting, or you're in Discord or whatever, and you want to show someone something on a mobile device that you have. You don't need to install anything on that device. This just pushes it onto the device. You need to have debug enabled, and you need to allow permission. But anyway, so from here, what we can do is I can navigate, and because this is a touch screen, my touch screen now activates. So now I get to control the character with the on-screen controls. And I just got this working the other day too, and it works pretty good. The buttons and everything, they work quite well. And the way that, so these are custom buttons that I made. The way that it works is that it's not a Unity button either. I made them custom, and I'm using raycasting to figure out the logic for it. So you can drag, and this is what I like about it. You can drag your finger from here. As soon as you get close to this, oops, I didn't mean to do that, but you don't have to press the button for it to trigger. If you click and drag onto it, and once you get to the hitbox of it, it'll automatically trigger. So you can have your finger from way over here being pressed, move it over here, and you can just start moving it, the control around. And there's a little bit of an overlap that I put as well. So there's a tiny bit of an overlap, which I will tweak later on. But that way, if you wanted to have, let's say, two directions active at the same time, you can absolutely do that by just kind of tweaking some values. And some of this stuff, of course, the UI, it's quite big. Like for a tablet or for a small screen device, it works. But later on, the plan is to allow the user to scale it. So that way, like let's say you're on a desktop, right? You don't really need UI to be that big. Probably smaller is better, right? So I'm going to add that kind of stuff into the settings. When we get to that point, it'll go somewhere into the probably the display settings here. But those are for later. And the scrolling, this is what I like, is that all of this functionality, it just works so well. On a mobile device, it feels, what I meant to say is the usability feels really good. And a lot of this, of course, is thanks to Unity. I didn't, of course, make all of it, but I built my logic on top of it, right? So we can go into, where was it? rank. So this works really well. And you can see the FPS as well up here. So we're getting pretty decent FPS on a very low-end device. But here's how you tank your FPS. Right? Like, look at that. Just completely tank. But of course, that's like not realistic at all. Really, we're going to have later on, we'll have maybe a couple of these layers of the navigation. No more than a couple, but usability wise, so I like to test this regularly just to see what does it feel like, right? What is the usability kind of feel like on a mobile device? Because that is what I am supporting in addition to everything else, right? So if my character didn't fall off the platform and still falling to infinity, I would be able to move around a little bit more. But the idea, of course, all of it comes down to mechanics, usability, and giving the user options, right? I like to provide options to the user. And when we get the gameplay at a certain point, right, we'll be able to move around. So imagine that UI that I just showed you with some minor differences, because that was the UI for the game room. So you'd still have the UI controls over here on the directional pad on the screen. This is, of course, on my desktop. And you'd be able to move and hop around and get to experience what it looks like. It really does create a nice illusion of a 2D pixel art environment while in a 2.5D but really 3D environment. And you can go in between, above, you can jump on top of stuff, right? Which you just can't do on a traditional purely a 2D environment. But you can do in a 2.5D environment, which is really cool. And I like that a lot. So this is what we're kind of working towards, and all of this artwork I did myself, but I see this as temporary art still. I am looking for an artist, so if you guys happen to know somebody who wouldn't mind working on a very, very casual basis based on direction from me, and can draw the style that is needed for the project, I'm definitely willing to give them a shot, because I went through so many artists now on Fiverr, on a bunch of different places. I give them a chance of, okay, so here's all the information, here's some samples, make me one single piece at the right perspective, in pixel art format, in the right style. Doesn't have to be perfect, just make me this object, right? I've yet to come across someone who understands the artwork style. And it's to be expected, right? Because not everybody gets it, right? It's really difficult to visually explain something to someone. You can tell, let's say 10 people draw a stick man with a smiley face, right? You're going to get 10 different looking stick men with a smiley face. No one is going to draw it exactly like the other person, and that's fair, right? But what about when you want a certain thing, a certain feature, a certain, I don't know, whatever, right? How do you relay that information to someone to understand it in the way that it's meant to be interpreted, right? How do you do that? Because I don't know. This Unity bug is brutal. If you guys are using the new Unity event system and experience bugs, oh my God, let me jump. Okay, so this bug is brutal. I have not been able to solve it. So let me show you what this bug is. So what we do is we go to Window, we go to what is it? Analysis. The input debugger. bring up the input debugger. And then what we do from here is go into keyboard. So we double click keyboard. So keyboard is up. And I'm going to take the input debugger and move that over. Okay. So what I want to show you is specifically the spacebar. Spacebar. Where is... Did I pass it? Space. Okay. So watch this value right here, right? Watch the value of the space. Sorry, I think it's value. So we'll stretch that out just so you can see. Oh, okay. So now it's squished properly. Okay. So watch those values. Here's what we're going to do. Going to do a short little test. Okay, so I'm pressing down, okay, spacebar, right? You're watching this value right here, right? When I press spacebar, I'm jumping, right? It changes to a 1 when it's held. Release it, it is 0. When I'm moving left, press spacebar, okay, that value changes. Moving to the right, spacebar, the value changes. Moving down, spacebar, the value changes. Moving up and just up, spacebar, value changes, and I jump. Okay, great. But what about if you want to move 2 directions at once, right? So here's what we'll do. We'll move up and to the left, spacebar, nothing. Up and to the left. I'm pressing spacebar. You can hear me through the microphone. I'm pressing spacebar. Where's my value? Okay, let go of up or down and just have 1 active, and there's spacebar. Same idea. So bottom left, bottom right, spacebar does not register. Okay, here's where it's interesting. Down and left, spacebar does not register. But up and right, so 2 positive values, spacebar registers. How do you explain that? I have no idea. It's just one of those things. So only if you're moving up and to the right, spacebar works, right? And you can't say it's my code because this is directly from Unity's input debugger, right? This is at the topmost point of Unity logic, right? So if you're pressing 2 directions and I'm using the arrows, it does not work. Here's the messed up part. So now WASD, right? Spacebar works no matter which directions you have active. And in this uses the exact same code in terms of my code, and it works just fine. So WASD works when you have 2 directions active, but spacebar, when you're using arrows and you're pressing spacebar, only the up and the right arrow at the same time will allow you to press spacebar. If you're pressing up and left, spacebar does not work. If you're pressing left and down, spacebar does not work. If you're pressing down and right, spacebar does not work. I don't know what to say about that. I really don't know what to say. It's one of those things. I've yet to make try to submit a bug report. I've tried searching it. The Unity search for bugs and stuff I find that incredibly difficult to find anything of value. I've never been successful with finding something. Just the way that their stuff is indexed, you're better off searching in Google to find something matches that are reported bugs than searching through Unity's search itself that they have for their bugs. That's been my experience. But yeah, so What I plan to do with that is make a standalone, just make a blank project and just test it to see if it's still the same on the blank project. Because it's been like this since the very first version of the new Unity input system that uses the new Unity event system. It's been that way since then. And I don't know what to do about it. So, and what I've been telling the beta testers, for the people who do test it, is just don't use arrows for positional movement. Use WASD, which a lot of people are comfortable with doing, right? But other people want to use arrows, right? Like if you're on a laptop, right? Maybe arrows makes more sense position-wise than using WASD, right? But anyway, it's just one of those weird things, right? I don't know. It's just one of those weird Unity bugs. Okay. So I couldn't solve that in this broadcast. I'm going to be honest. It's just because I'm not in the right state of mind, but I'm confident I'll figure it out tomorrow morning, likely. The first thing when I get a chance to turn on the computer and have a go at it, I'll probably figure it out in maybe 10 minutes or less. It shouldn't be that difficult. But that's going to be it for me today. So for those of you that are here, thank you for being here and thank you for watching. If you like this and you want to be up to speed with the project, I write dev journals periodically. Like I try to write it every 2 weeks or so. It doesn't always work out just because I'm busy with other stuff. But I do try to write dev journals about the stuff that I've been working on. I'm going to try to write one this week about some of the stuff that I've covered. And if you're watching the broadcast and you already know what I'm pretty much going to be covering for the most part, the broadcasts, these are the best way to kind of stay up to speed. If you like this kind of content, by all means, feel free to watch them on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of them. If you want to skim through them, they're at your discretion. Whenever kind of is something you want to watch or skim through it, it's available. Discord is there for the community and for those who have been playing the old Flash version for quite many years and are looking forward to the new version. And then there is, of course, Twitter and Instagram, which I only really use for posting when I'm online or when there's a new dev journal entry. That's really what I use it for. So that's pretty much it in terms of today's broadcast. I do want to show something really quickly if I can find it. Nope. Where is it? There we go. Yeah, so again, this is an artwork piece that one of the community members did, and I think it looks really good. That's why I want to show it off, because it looks really good. It was really well done, and I think it looks awesome. Anyway, so that's going to be it for me today. So thank you for watching. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye.